Laws are the bedrock of a rational society. But somewhere between protecting citizens and writing rules, lawmakers took a very strange turn and started worrying about things like drunk goldfish and bears that wrestle. This is the gray zone where logic dies and legislative madness begins. We've compiled 50 of the most profoundly stupid, bizarre, and hilarious laws ever written about pets and wildlife. Prepare for a journey that will make you question the sanity of the people in charge. 1. The city of Juneau, Alaska, has a law that is a beautiful solution in search of a problem. It is illegal for a flamingo to enter a barbershop. Not a dog, not a cat, but a flamingo. This raises so many questions. Was there a rogue flamingo with a magnificent crest that kept demanding a trim? The law is a monument to a specific, and now likely forgotten, moment of local madness that was so profound they had to legislate against it ever happening again. 2. If you're planning to ruin a wedding in South Australia, you'll have to scrap any plans involving pigeons. A specific law in the region makes it a serious offense to intentionally release a homing pigeon with the intent to disrupt a wedding ceremony or a public sporting event. This is so beautifully specific that it absolutely must have happened. Someone, somewhere, was so consumed by vengeance that their master plan involved unleashing a feathered air force of very confused pigeons at the exact moment the I do's were being exchanged. It's sabotage at its most bizarre. 3. What happens when your pet parrot has a potty mouth? In London, you could face legal trouble. The city has a little-known bylaw that forbids the owners of public houses, that is, pubs, from allowing their animals to cause a nuisance. While this generally applies to things like barking dogs, it has historically been used to address the issue of parrots that learn to swear from the patrons. There have been several famous cases of pub parrots being removed from duty after developing a vocabulary that would make a sailor blush. It's a law that forces pub owners to be the language police for their own pets, lest a foul-beaked fowl offend the clientele. 4. Ever considered a career in professional bear wrestling? Well, if so, you'll have to cross Alabama off your list of potential venues. A state law makes it a Class B felony, a serious crime, to promote, engage in, or even purchase a ticket to a bear wrestling match. The most telling detail is that the law explicitly forbids surgically declawing or altering a bear for a fight. This proves it wasn't a hypothetical problem legislators were worried about. This was a spectacle that happened often enough and was gruesome enough to warrant a specific, high-level criminal statute. 5. Picture this. It's 6:01 p.m. in Little Rock, Arkansas. Your beloved dog sees a squirrel performing acrobatics on a telephone pole. He lets out a single, triumphant bark. Congratulations, you are now a criminal. A local ordinance makes it illegal for a dog to bark, at all. After 6 p.m., it doesn't specify nuisance barking. Any bark will do. This is a law written with zero understanding of the very creature it's meant to govern. How many of you would be facing a mountain of fines every single week under a rule this absurd? 6. Of course, it's Florida. The state has a law that doesn't forbid you from tying an elephant to a parking meter. Oh no, that would be too logical. Instead, it simply requires you to pay the parking fee just as you would for a car. This represents a level of pragmatic absurdity only Florida could achieve. Any other state's legislature would see that scenario and write a law to prevent it. Florida saw it and thought, how do we make sure we get our 75 cents out of this situation? It's chaos management at its finest. 7. Making an ugly face at a dog could land you in jail in Oklahoma. The very same statute also makes it illegal to swear in a dog's presence. Apparently, the state is deeply concerned with the emotional well-being and self-esteem of its canine population. So the next time your golden retriever lovingly shreds your brand new sneakers, you are legally obligated to suppress your rage and offer calm, polite, and emotionally supportive feedback. No scowling, no foul language, just constructive dialogue. 8. It is strictly forbidden to harm a seagull in Salt Lake City, Utah, And it's not because they're an endangered species. They are revered because of an event known as the Miracle of the Gulls. In 1848, Mormon pioneers had their first crucial crops devastated by a plague of crickets. Just as starvation seemed inevitable, massive flocks of California gulls miraculously appeared from the sky and devoured the insects, saving the settlement. To this day, the seagull is the official state bird of Utah. It's a rare case where a dumb-sounding law has an absolutely epic origin story, protecting a bird that is seen elsewhere as little more than a feathered beach pest. 9. Driving a camel on a Nevada highway will get you into serious trouble with the law. This sounds like a solution to a problem that couldn't possibly exist, but it's a legislative fossil from a forgotten chapter of American history. In the 1850s, the U.S. Army actually created the Camel Corps to transport supplies in the arid Southwest. The project ultimately failed, partly because horses and mules were terrified of the camels, causing logistical chaos, and the animals were sold or released. For decades, feral camels were a genuine, if surreal, traffic hazard. This law is a monument to that failed experiment. 10. The law in Alaska isn't just that it's illegal to spot a moose from an airplane. The truly mind-bending part is the clause that explicitly forbids you from pushing a live moose out of a moving airplane. The fact that this had to be clarified tells you everything you need to know about the state's unique character. This law was enacted after a town, famous for its bizarre annual celebrations, decided that parachuting a moose into the city square would be peak entertainment. Alaska isn't just a state, it's an adventure with legal footnotes. 11. For over 200 years, naming a pig Napoleon was technically illegal in France. This law wasn't about preventing porcine identity crises. It was a direct result of the ego of Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. He apparently found the idea of a farm animal sharing his name to be deeply insulting, so a law was passed to prevent this specific form of agricultural satire. While the law was quietly repealed in 2013, for 2 centuries you risked the wrath of the state if you decided to mock the emperor via your livestock. 12. What if a law that sounds utterly insane is actually a stroke of genius? In Switzerland, a country known for its precision, it is illegal to own just one guinea pig. Under their animal welfare laws, guinea pigs, being highly social creatures, are considered victims of abuse if kept in isolation. The law mandates they have a companion. This has created a wonderfully weird cottage industry of guinea pig rental services, so if one of your pair passes away, you can rent a friend for your surviving pet to keep it company until it, too, goes to the great hay-filled pasture in the sky. 13. Illinois lawmakers apparently felt the need to specify that you cannot, under any circumstances, give a lit cigar to your dog, cat, or any other domesticated animal. This isn't part of a broad "don't be cruel" statute. It is a specific prohibition against offering your pets a smoldering roll of tobacco. One can only assume there was a very specific, very strange incident involving a man, his beagle, and a cohiba that led a legislator to stand up and say, "Never again." 14. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the legendary ape of the Pacific Northwest, in Skamania County, Washington, he isn't just a legend, he's a protected species. An ordinance passed in 1969 makes it a felony to harass or kill a Sasquatch, punishable by a hefty fine and a year in jail. The law was enacted during the height of Bigfoot mania to prevent a mob of hunters from descending on the county. But it raises a fascinating question. Does this law grant Bigfoot a strange kind of legal credibility, or does it just make the county government look completely insane? Let us know what you think. 15. The state of North Carolina once legally settled the cat versus dog debate. For many years, state law treated stealing a dog as a serious crime of larceny, viewing them as valuable working property. And cats? They were legally classified as having little to no monetary value, essentially seen as self-sufficient vagrants. This sent a clear message to pet thieves. Take the loyal guard dog and you face hard time. Take the aloof tabby cat? The law basically shrugged, assuming it was probably on its way out anyway. 16. the gentle soundtrack of the suburbs, birds chirping, lawnmowers humming, and in San Jose, California, the legally restricted crow of a rooster. A city ordinance places a strict limit on how many roosters a resident can own, specifically because of their notorious morning announcements. You are allowed a few hens, but owning multiple roosters is a noise violation waiting to happen. It's a modern solution to an ancient problem, representing the ongoing battle between our desire for farm-fresh eggs and our deep, desperate need for a few more minutes of sleep. 17. You would think that "don't steal milk directly from someone else's cow" would be a universally understood, unwritten rule of civilized society. But in Texas, they decided they needed it in writing. It is an offense to milk another person's cow, with the law treating the act as a form of theft. It's a charmingly rustic statute that reminds you of a time when the most valuable asset you had might be chewing cud in your pasture, and your biggest security concern was a neighbor with a suspiciously empty pail. 18. When you think of a horse, you probably picture it in a stable or a pasture. The lawmakers of New York City, however, pictured it in a hotel. An old and likely unenforced law on the city's books states that if a horse spends the night in a hotel with its owner, both the owner and the horse must be provided with a bed and a bucket of oats. It's a charmingly antiquated rule from a time when your transportation might also be your roommate, guaranteeing your equine companion the 19th century equivalent of a 5-star hotel experience. 19. Thinking of a unique date night in Baltimore, Maryland? You'll have to scrap any plans that involve taking a lion to the movies. A city health ordinance explicitly forbids it. Just take a moment to imagine the scenario that made this law necessary. The popcorn mess alone would be catastrophic. The roaring during dramatic scenes, the awkwardness of the lion taking up 3 seats, the inevitable argument over who gets the armrest. What movie would you even take a lion to see? The Lion King feels a little on the nose, doesn't it? 20. In Sterling, Colorado, city officials solved the problem of nocturnal feline safety with a solution that is both idiotic and genius. A local law states that if cats are to be allowed to run loose after dark, they must be equipped with a taillight. While likely no longer enforced, the mental image is unforgettable. Imagine a quiet suburban street, completely dark, except for dozens of tiny red lights bobbing and weaving through the bushes as the neighborhood's feline population goes about its nightly business. 21. In the deep, dark waters of Scotland's Loch Ness resides a legend known around the globe. But Nessie isn't just a myth. She's a legally protected species. The Scottish Natural Heritage Agency officially added the Loch Ness Monster to the National Registry of Protected Creatures. This means that if you happen to encounter a 60-foot-long plesiosaur on your fishing trip, you are legally forbidden from harming it. It's a brilliant move, simultaneously protecting a potential one-of-a-kind cryptid and a billion-dollar tourism industry. But what's funnier? The idea that Nessie is real, or the government paperwork that treats her like she is. 22. Ever found yourself in a heated debate over whether a snail legally qualifies as a fish? Well, the French government has an official answer for you, and it's a resounding yes. For the purposes of customs duties and agricultural taxes, French law classifies snails as fish. This bizarre bit of legislative gymnastics was a clever way to navigate complex European Union trade rules, likely by slotting snails into a lower tariff category. So, the next time you enjoy a plate of escargot drenched in garlic butter, remember you're not just eating a delicacy. You're dining on what is, according to the Napoleonic Code, a very, very slow, shell-wearing landfish. 23. Let's journey to Montana, where a law that sounds like a rural joke has a surprisingly high-stakes backstory. It is illegal to have a sheep in the cab of your truck without a chaperone. This wasn't about preventing a lonely sheep from distracting the driver. The law was enacted after the state imported extremely rare and valuable Argyle sheep from Asia for big game hunting ranches. To prevent them from spreading diseases to the native bighorn population, these multi-thousand-dollar animals were transported with extreme care, often with a dedicated handler, a chaperone, right there in the cab. The law is a living fossil from that high-stakes conservation effort. 24. The town of Paulsboro, New Jersey, has officially picked a side in the eternal war between suburban homeowners and squirrels. A local law makes it illegal for a person to annoy, molest, or vex a squirrel. This ordinance effectively grants squirrels a level of legal protection typically reserved for endangered species. So, when a squirrel is systematically digging up your prize-winning tulips or executing a high-wire raid on your bird feeder, you are legally expected to let it finish its business. Whose side are you on in this conflict? Beleaguered humanity or the legally protected squirrel overlords? 25. In Connecticut, for a dog to be considered officially educated, it must be able to tattoo its own name. Now, before you call animal services, this is a beautiful example of a poorly worded historical law. The original intent was that an educated or trained dog needed an identifying mark, or tattoo, on its collar. But as written, the law creates the incredible and frankly inspiring image of a border collie in a tattoo parlor, carefully inking Buddy onto its own leg with intense focus, finally earning its canine diploma. 26. The concept of fishes royal sounds like something from a medieval fantasy novel, but it's a very real British law dating back to a 1324 statute under King Edward II. It decrees that any whale, dolphin, or sturgeon found on the coast technically belongs to the reigning monarch. So if a 40-ton humpback washes ashore in Brighton, it's not just a tragic natural event. It's an unsolicited and very large gift to the crown. One has to wonder about the modern bureaucratic chaos this causes. Does the king get a text? Is there a specific royal citation department to handle the paperwork? 27. The state of Kentucky has a law against dyeing or coloring any live fowl, rabbit, or baby chick. This might sound like a minor issue, but it strikes at the heart of a bizarre and surprisingly cruel holiday tradition, selling brightly colored animals for Easter. Every year, people buy these novelty pets for their kids, only to abandon them once the fluorescent pink or electric blue wears off. This law isn't just about preventing a chicken from looking ridiculous. It's a necessary stand against the idea of treating living creatures like disposable, seasonal decorations. 28. Oklahoma is a thoroughly landlocked state. It is over 500 miles and several state lines away from the nearest ocean. It is, therefore, one of the last places on Earth you would expect to encounter a whale. And yet, it is explicitly illegal to hunt whales within the state of Oklahoma. This is the ultimate monument to legislative overpreparedness. The lawmakers were either copying laws from a coastal state without reading them, or they were preparing for the infinitesimally small chance of a catastrophic sea level rise followed by a Moby Dick scenario in Tulsa. What's your theory? 29. A legendary but very real Arizona law once made it illegal to allow a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. The origin story is pure folklore gold. In 1924, a local dam burst, and a rancher's donkey, who had a peculiar habit of napping in a discarded bathtub on the property, was washed miles down the valley. The entire town then spent a massive amount of manpower and resources to rescue the stranded and presumably very clean animal. Shortly after, the town council passed the law to ensure they would never ever have to launch a large-scale rescue mission for a bathtub napping donkey again. 30. California, the land of endless personal freedoms, draws a hard, inexplicable line at one specific creature, the ferret. It's one of the only places in America where owning one as a pet is strictly illegal. The official reason is the fear that escaped ferrets could establish feral populations and harm native wildlife. But this is a state successfully managing wild parrots, peacocks, and even invasive wild boars. Is this a genuine ecological concern? Or a bizarre, targeted vendetta against the world's most charming and socially acceptable noodle-shaped predator? 31. Why did the chicken cross the road? In the town of Quitman, Georgia, the answer is because it was exercising its legal right to do so, as long as its owner was in control. An old city ordinance makes it illegal for chickens to cross the road on their own. The law specifically puts the onus on the owner to prevent their fowl from wandering into traffic. This is the legislative equivalent of the world's most famous anti-joke. It transforms a philosophical punchline into a mundane, ticketable offense, and in doing so, might just be the most disappointing, bureaucratic answer to that question ever devised. 32. Public displays of affection are often frowned upon, but in California, this social etiquette extends to the animal kingdom by law. A state rule forbids animals from mating publicly within 500 feet of a school, a place of worship, or a tavern. The beautiful absurdity here is that the law puts the responsibility on animals that are acting on pure instinct. You have to wonder about enforcement. Does a police officer measure the distance from the church to 2 squirrels on a telephone wire? It's a law that bravely and foolishly attempts to impose human modesty on the entire natural world. 33. Ever felt like your local government is being run by animals? Well, for 20 years, the town of Talkeetna, Alaska, took that literally. In 1997, a ginger cat named Stubbs was elected as the honorary mayor. What started as a joke write-in campaign to protest the human candidates became a 2-decade-long political career. Mayor Stubbs governed from the local general store, drinking catnip-laced water from a wine glass and winning the hearts of tourists and locals alike. He held the position until his death in 2017, proving that sometimes the most effective politician is one who sleeps 16 hours a day and has absolutely no legislative agenda. 34. The city of Memphis, Tennessee, apparently decided it had the authority to impose a legally binding curfew on amphibians. An official city ordinance makes it illegal for any frog to croak after 11 p.m. This isn't just a noise complaint. It's a bold legislative move against nature's own late-night soundtrack. One can only imagine the absurdity of enforcing this. Do the police carry a frog decibel meter? Do they issue a warning croak first? It paints a surreal picture of officers, exhausted after a long shift, wading into a swamp to read a chorus of bullfrogs their rights and sternly tell them to keep it down. 35. Your pet canary in Berkeley, California, has a legally mandated and very early wake-up call. According to a city ordinance, it is a violation if your canary does not sing before 7 a.m. This isn't a law, it's a citywide mandate for forced avian cheerfulness, a perfect encapsulation of Berkeley's spirit of meticulous, well-intentioned overregulation. There are no exceptions for the canary that had a late-night cracking seeds with friends, is feeling a bit moody, or simply isn't a morning bird. The city demands its melody, on schedule. 36. High society in Chicago once had a very specific, 4-legged enemy, the French poodle. An old city ordinance made it illegal to take a French poodle with you to the opera. Not just any dog, but specifically a French poodle. This law is a fantastic relic of early 20th century class anxiety. The French poodle was the ultimate symbol of aristocratic wealth, and this was likely a populist jab at the city's elite. It's a law that had absolutely nothing to do with animal control and everything to do with using legislation to make a snarky social statement. 37. In Tennessee, if you want to go fishing, you have 2 primary options. You can use a rod and reel like a normal person, or you can use a lasso. That's right. It is perfectly legal to catch fish by lassoing them. While this is likely meant for very large catfish, or spoonbill, the law doesn't specify size. It creates the incredible image of a Tennessee cowboy standing on a riverbank, expertly twirling a rope before flawlessly snagging a tiny, bewildered bluegill. It's where the Wild West meets the water. 38. The small town of International Falls, Minnesota, decided to flip the script on a classic cartoon trope. There, it is illegal for a cat to chase a dog up a telephone pole. You have to appreciate the sheer audacity of this law. It's not about protecting the cat or the dog or the pole. It seems to be about maintaining the natural order of things. In this town, the universal hierarchy of canines chasing felines is not just a suggestion, it's the law. 39. In downtown Omaha, Nebraska, a city law makes it illegal for chickens to roam free within the city limits. This paints a wonderfully surreal picture of a bustling modern city, with skyscrapers and traffic, still needing a specific law on the books to deal with the potential chaos of a renegade flock of chickens disrupting the morning commute. It's a solution for a barnyard problem in a boardroom world. 40. Most public nuisance laws deal with loud neighbors, barking dogs, or messy yards. But the state of West Virginia has one for bees with bad attitudes. It is technically illegal to keep bees or hives that are deemed a public nuisance to the surrounding area. This is wonderfully vague. What exactly constitutes a nuisance bee? A bee that buzzes off-key? A bee that loiters aggressively near your picnic? It's a law that gives authorities the power to crack down on any bee that just doesn't seem to be a team player. 41. Getting a fish drunk is officially illegal in Ohio. While the law is part of a broader and quite reasonable set of regulations protecting state waters from industrial pollutants and harmful substances, the actual wording is a masterpiece of accidental comedy. It conjures vivid images of a tiny, underwater speakeasy where guppies trade secrets over minuscule martinis. You can just picture a world-weary goldfish, 3 algae-teenies deep, slurring its life story to a sympathetic snail before being read its Miranda rights by a particularly stern-looking crayfish sheriff. 42. If you happen to be a stage magician with a flair for animal hypnosis, you'll need to avoid Hermosa Beach, California. A local ordinance makes it unlawful to hypnotize any animal or person and display them in a storefront window. The law was likely intended to stop charlatan hypnotists from blocking sidewalks with their mesmerizing antics. But the explicit inclusion of animals opens up a world of bizarre possibilities. It's a law that bravely stands against the non-existent threat of a street performer putting a dozen chickens into a trance for public amusement. 43. In Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, it is illegal to lead a cow down the street while drinking an alcoholic beverage. This is a masterpiece of legislative precision. You can lead a cow down the street. You can drink an alcoholic beverage. You just can't do both at the same time. The law was likely intended to prevent drunken farmers from causing chaos, but the specific pairing of activities creates a scenario so wonderfully absurd, it feels like it was written by a comedian. 44. Most animal cruelty laws are designed to protect animals from humans. But in China, during the Qing dynasty, one law did the opposite. It protected humans from pandas. At the time, pandas were believed to be mythical, fearsome beasts with supernatural powers. An imperial decree made it a crime punishable by death to harm a panda, not out of a sense of conservation, but out of pure terror. They believed killing one would bring down a terrible curse upon the entire region. It's a conservation law driven by superstition. 45. If you're a mouse in the town of Lang, Saskatchewan, in Canada, you have a legal right to a peaceful life, at least when it comes to your feet. A bizarre local ordinance makes it illegal to catch a mouse with your bare hands. This isn't about public health or safety. Local lore suggests it was passed after a town drunk, famous for his lightning-fast reflexes, kept terrorizing the local rodent population with his uncanny ability. The town council, either out of pity for the mice or annoyance with the man, decided to outlaw his very specific and very weird party trick. 46. The state of Idaho has a law that makes it illegal to fish from the back of a giraffe. It also forbids fishing from the back of a camel. This is a classic example of a model law, where legislators in landlocked states would sometimes copy entire sections of legal code from other states without editing out the irrelevant parts. Somewhere, a coastal state might have had a law about fishing from animals on a beach boardwalk, and Idaho just copy-pasted the whole thing, forever protecting its citizens from the non-existent threat of giraffe-based angling. 47. In the United Kingdom, it is an offense to handle a salmon in suspicious circumstances. This is not a joke. The Salmon Act of 1986 was created to combat illegal poaching and trafficking of salmon. But the vague wording of suspicious circumstances is wonderfully British. What constitutes a suspicious circumstance for a salmon? Is it wearing a tiny trench coat and sunglasses? Is it loitering in a dark alley? It gives police the power to stop anyone who just doesn't look right holding a fish. 48. Why did the cow cross the road in Oregon? Because it had the right of way. State traffic laws explicitly grant livestock the right of way on all public roads. This means if you're driving down a highway and come across a herd of cattle, you are the one who has to yield. It's a simple, pragmatic law that acknowledges the state's agricultural roots, legally placing a 1,500-pound cow above a 2-ton SUV in the traffic hierarchy. 49. The city of Normal, Illinois has a law that feels like a personal attack on puppies everywhere. It is against the law for a dog to make faces at a human. This is the inverse of the Oklahoma law. In Normal, the dogs are the ones who must control their expressions. One can only imagine the puppy who, upon tasting a lemon for the first time, finds itself in contempt of court for its involuntary grimace. All right, we've covered 49 laws, and before our grand finale, it's time for the final verdict. Our award for the single dumbest law on this list goes to Oklahoma's ban on whale hunting. While other laws are silly or based on a weird local incident, this one is a monument to pure, geographic impossibility. It protects a landlocked state from a threat separated by over 500 miles of solid ground. It's a legislative masterpiece for solving a problem that could only exist in a fever dream. Do you agree with our verdict? Or did another law deserve this dubious honor? Let us know in the comments. And now, for our final number. 50. An official House of Representatives rule forbids bringing a live ostrich onto the chamber floor. This isn't some 18th century relic. The rule was created in the 1990s to stop a congressman who planned to protest a bill by bringing a 7-foot-tall bird into a live debate. House leadership discovered the plot and passed a specific, preemptive ostrich ban, saving C-SPAN viewers from what would have been the greatest political theater in modern history. So it's clear our attempts to govern the animal kingdom often say more about our own absurdity than anything else. But now, a challenge for you. Scan back through this list of legislative failures and find the one law you believe is secretly brilliant. I want you to defend it in the comments. Don't just say you like it. Build a passionate, ironclad case for why a flamingo has no business in a barbershop or why it's a felony to wrestle a bear. And if you enjoy having your brain twisted by this kind of madness, destroy that subscribe button and activate notifications. We have plenty more exhibits in this museum of insanity.